In this movie I'm going to discuss the various placement modes for the plant tool. And by placement modes I mean the way that you can insert a group of plants like we have here, a line of plants like we have here, maybe some individual plants, and so on. There's various different ways that you can place plants, and that's what we're going to look at here. I'll begin by switching to a blank document and then selecting the plant tool, and the plant tool is in the landmark workspace in the site planning toolset. And you can see up here in the toolbar the various placement modes, and we'll go through them one by one. The first placement mode will just place an individual plant at the location where you click. So if I put the cursor over the drawing and I click, one click will place a plant, and that plant will report on will have whatever settings you've set as the default settings. In the next placement mode, which is PolyVex, PolyVertex placement mode, you can click to insert a group of plants that may be randomly placed, but you want them listed with a single tag. So I will click once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and say finish with the 5th click, and that'll be a double click. And here I now have a group of plants. You can see it's reporting the 5 plants as a single tag. If I pick up one of the plants and move it, they'll all stay together. And optionally you'll see that you have in the polygon display, you can actually show that they are linked together with a solid line or dashed lines or boundary gapped and so on. So there's various different ways that you can show it. I guess probably the most common one would be the centers dashed like that. In the next placement mode, it's this one here, and this is known as PolyEdge spaced mode. Bit of a mouthful. And in this one you can draw a line of plants, and as you draw, or as you move the cursor from your first click, you'll see that more plants are continuing to appear at the nominated spacing. And if I click to change direction, then the same thing will happen. Just zoom out a little bit while we're doing this. And again, double click to finish, and that's going to report as the total number with the tag, with a single tag. Now here with the spacing, you can alter that. So if you want them to be further apart or closer together, you can simply change this number. So if I made this 1600 millimeters, then they're going to move closer together, and there's going to be more plants in this particular group. One of the options that you do have when plants are overlapping like this is to mass them. In other words, instead of showing the individual plants, is to show them as a single group. Whoops. And in order to do this, just zoom in a little bit. In order to do this, you would check this box here that says mass plants, and when you do that, you can see that instead of seeing individual plants, you get the outline, and the definition of how that appears in there is in the plant definition. But we're only talking about the placement modes at the moment. The final 2 placement modes are this one here, which is rectangular array mode, and triangular array mode, are quite similar. And in these modes, and I'll just zoom out a little bit, you actually define an area, a boundary area of plants, and then the plants will appear as a single group at the nominated spacing, just with a single tag. And you can switch between the rectangular mode you'll see here plants in rectangular array, plants in triangular array. So this is the only difference between these two modes here. So you can obviously do this by choosing the mode first, or you can come back after you've drawn it and change that mode. Now in Vectorworks 2013 there was an additional feature added which can make these kind of masses of plants look a bit more natural, and that is that you can see the plant scale here is currently set to fixed. So you can ask the plant tool to randomly resize the plants a little bit so that they're just not all exactly the same size, and you get a more natural looking appearance that way. And you have the option there of 5%, 10% or 15%. At 15% the variation is going to be a bit greater. Now in this mode, or in fact in any but the single mode, you can use the reshape tool to change the border. So I can pick up this corner or this edge here and move it out here. I can drag this corner and resize it, and essentially the boundary is going to change, and the number of plants and their positioning is going to change accordingly. And you also do have the spacing in this mode, so if you want to space them further apart, you can simply put in a larger number there, and the plants will space differently. And again, you can change from triangular to rectangular. So I want to demonstrate two more features of placing plants, and I'll just mention one other thing with the plant tool. This final option here in the toolbar is the pickup mode, and what this allows you to do is to pick up the settings from another plant to apply to plants that you're about to place. So for example, if I had been placing a completely different plant, say something like this, and then I wanted to go on and place some of these, rather than going back to the plant tool and clicking on the preferences dialog and choosing that one, I can simply take this this option here, click on this, and that will pick up that particular plant, and you can see now that it's picked up this, and I'm ready to go with that plant. Similarly, if I clicked on this again and clicked on this plant, then I'll pick up this these Moreas here. So that's by way of an introduction to the final way that you can place plants, and that is if you already have geometry in the drawing along which you want to place a plant. So for example, I've drawn this line here. If I wanted to have a row of plants running along here or running along here, then there's another general command that you can use to this that works with the plant tool. So the first thing I'm going to do is to nominate or set up what I want to see, and what I want is to create another lot of plants similar to these, but I want them to run along this this line here. So we'll use the pickup mode here, click on this, and that's the first step. The second step is to select or draw and select the line that you want, and then right click on it, or if you don't use right clicking, you can, on a Mac, you can press Control and left click, and what we're going to choose is this create objects from shapes, and the object type we want to create is plant, but you will notice there's lots of other types of objects that you can create, and you can choose to keep or delete the line that you've drawn. In this case we'll delete the line. Let's click OK, and you'll see that we've got these plants. Let's just put the tag up there somewhere meaningful. We've got these plants that have been run along here. I can have massing on or not. I can then mix things up, have it follow the line, and so on. So let's now try that again with these acacias over here. So again, we'll take the plant tool in pickup mode, we'll click on that, and I'll come down here and right click on this line, and we're going to choose create objects from shapes, and again it's going to be plant, delete source shapes, click OK, and you'll see that we've now got those plants nicely displayed along that line. So that's really the final way that you can place plants if you've already got geometry in the drawing.